Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. Oh, look, I'm in black once again. StreamYard has been quite squirrely these past few days, and I think it is not just me. I think we need to talk to someone in a stern tone of voice and hopefully get these things ironed out. Anyway, I'm here at an awkward time for a Wednesday wrap up. That's right. My name is Margaret Pennard. I'm a historical fiction and fantasy author, and this is my channel. You're on Booktube. I'm looking like a scrub. I just stuffed my face full of more food. The schedule today has been thrown into disarray. Not my fault. It's the doctor's office fault. So join with me. Join with me. We're going to have a little bitch and moan session. But first, welcome to the Wednesday wrap up. Lovely to see anyone who's dropping in. Eva is here. Hello, hello. Anita is here. AF Stewart. Hi, hi, hi. Jim is here from Jim's Books, Reading, and Stuff. Hey, y'all. I liked his latest update on Wuthering Heights and why it's being so popular viewed in India, which is pretty fun to look at the analytics for. I have got a lot of books today for Wednesday as a wrap up. I have 8. One is an ebook, 2 are audiobooks, and that leaves 5 for you math nerds out there for physical books. And most of those are from the library. So interesting sort of mix today. I usually like to review my books every 2 weeks in a sort of grouping. It goes from anywhere to 4 to 8 books is my range. And I am an eclectic reader. So we are going to hear from a romance author. We're going to hear from activist, a writer, memoir writer, a textile historian, another writer who's writing fiction in the Caribbean. Let's see, cookbook editing team, recipe development team, and a scientist, biologist, and the last one is Cli-Fi. So the way I decided to arrange this when I was waiting at the doctor's office is by first going through the books that fit into readathons. So you'll hear first about the Black Author Tuber readathon, which I'm hosting this month. And my goal is to lift up the voices of Black authors who I know on YouTube, who have channels, so you can grab their books as recommendations and have them all year long to read and support diverse voices. Excuse me. So that is what I am doing for Black authors on YouTube. And then the second readathon I am talking about today is Climathon, for which I am a co-host. So yeah, if you like either of those things as just a sample of my eclectic reading, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And before we get started on all the book reviews, I just wanted to share my distress intolerance. And hopefully this will be funny for you guys. So I had planned to go down for walk-in hours at my local clinic for a orthostatic blood pressure test because they didn't have time to do it yesterday at my scheduled appointment. So I did that, and then I was planning to go to the gym after that and then come back for this live stream at noon. So I pushed it back a little so that I would have time. Not enough. Ladies and gentlefolk. I was waiting 20 minutes. I did the test. They did it wrong. I had to wait another 10 minutes to find out they did it wrong and needed to do another way. And then I waited another 10 minutes to be told, like, we don't know what the results are about. And can you wait another 10? And I was just like, I can't go to the gym now. I can't walk there, do anything, and walk back. So you've messed up my schedule. Now I have to change the time for the live stream, go directly back home, and then figure out to do something at the gym in the afternoon. And just like, it just felt like a big waste of time, both their like space, because I was taking up an office for their walk-in hours for like an hour and a half for a 10-minute test because they didn't know how to do it. So I learned about this phrase from my new friend Amy, who I met at a resilience dinner, which is a thing. If you're curious, ask me about a resilience dinner. But I also learned a phrase called distress intolerance. And it was from someone talking about boomers, but I think I fit into this category of having distress intolerance. Um, and it's just like melding with my image of a rage geyser, because Amy was saying that like every once in a while she channels these feelings of rage that she suppresses to be professional and civilized and just like lets it out. So if you are in a place where you can let it out with me, I invite you. And if not, brace yourselves for some loud noise. I wish I could tell my cat to expect this, but just like, let's give ourselves a barbaric yop. That's what I'm also channeling from Dead Poets Society. So if you think about you're trying to take care of yourself, you're trying to be proactive, you're trying to be preventative, you're trying to connect the dots and be a good citizen, and you go and you're trying not to inconvenience people, and instead your time is wasted and people don't know what they're doing in their professional lives, and so like you have to rearrange and accommodate them. Not a big deal in the scheme of things, in the big set of the universe, but like while I'm trying to tick by the time and think about my decisions for the day, which is stressful for me because I don't like decisions, I was feeling my blood pressure go up, which is not good because I was there for a blood pressure test. So anyway, brace yourselves for a little mini rage geyser noise. Okay, it's out. That's my experiment for today. Leslie's in here. Okay. Hopefully that had a positive effect on my blood pressure. And now we can get to the readathons. Leslie was here just in time for my barbaric yop rage geyser. Welcome. Welcome. Anita says swearing is my go-to rage geyser. Yeah. Swearing's good. Swearing is a good outlet, like a valve outlet. Yes. Feels good. Yeah. Normally what I'm going in for is histamine intolerance and seeing whether like there's allergic reactions or something going on, right? So I sneeze a lot because of this. And so sometimes the sneezes are really big because that's just like how I sneeze, how I've inherited it. Sometimes I let the scream come in a little with the sneeze that's so big, and it just feels good. Feels good. Yes. Okay. Now we're back. We're golden. We're going to talk about my books I've read in February so far. So the last 2 weeks. And just if you're curious or if you want to get in on this and tell me what's your February reading mood. I know Valentine's is coming up, but not my mood, not this year. So let's see if this will come up for me. If not, I will just have to talk about it without a cover. My ebook went dead in the time it took to wait for the wrap up. So I have a battery thing and it won't let me boot it up even though it's plugged in. Okay, so our first book is going to be The Girl with the Hazel Eyes for the Black Author Tuber Readathon. So last Sunday I had Tiffany TL Russ was on the channel for Black Author Tuber Sunday feature. The Sunday before it was Callie Browning, and I read her book, The Girl with the Hazel Eyes, for her appearance so that I could talk to her about it. And I've been waiting to read it for like a year. So it was good that I finally had like, okay, nail it. We're going to do this now. It was a 2-day read, so it was a very quick read. I had it on the Kindle. I have a question mark in my notes. Usually I only get things on the Kindle if it's the only way to get it, because I don't want to support Amazon because it's doing things that clear the Amazon and don't align with my environmental goals. But she may have had a sale or something. I don't know. So I had it on the Kindle. She classifies it as women's fiction, which I would agree with. It is bigger than romance. So even if you see like the pretty cover, it's not a romance. It's more, there's more going on than the like single driving romance storyline, right? So romance is not the center. I would say this is a dual narrative. Basically, it's the same setup as several other books recently, which is like a reclusive famous author who hasn't, made the scene in decades. calls out to a younger aspiring author and wants to tell them their life story. And you're like, okay, is it unreliable narrator? Why this person? What's the connection? And you're sort of wondering about that mystery throughout the story. And I liked this. This is the first one I've read. I've heard about other books, but this is the first one of that setup that I've read. And I liked it. It was easily guessable what the connection was, but that didn't diminish my enjoyment. I still felt it was exciting because they have political intrigue. There's some core friendships that are really interesting to observe as they develop over time, and also just the hardship that we get in the Caribbean history. So Callie Browning is a Barbadian author. Bajan Callie is her handle. And so I got to learn a little bit more about Barbados's history, especially in the mid 20th century. So independence movements, Barbados is known as being like the fanciest, like the jewel in the crown of the British possessions in the Caribbean for a long time. It was one of the earlier colonized islands. And it has been, sugar plantation island for a long time. So they did not go through the sort of convulsive, rebellious revolts that some of the other Caribbean islands experienced in their journey to freedom. So it was more of a politically motivated discussion in the mid 20th century. This is what I'm getting from the book. And it was interesting to see as a contrast. So I had read a little about sugar plantations in the Caribbean as background history for my book, ORLA Rafferty Seeks Her Fortune. And so it was kind of cool that we had that connection, that Glasgow is based on sugar wealth, and it's all the rich bastards who are owning the slaves in the 18th century. And then she was writing a book in the 20th century, set in the 20th century, that was about people getting their independence and breaking free of that and like trying to decide their own destiny. And we're seeing that through the lens of someone who is growing up now and also someone who's growing up during the independence period. So it was very neat, very thoughtful and steady narrative. I wouldn't say it's too fast paced. It is a quick read, but I feel like that's because of like the volume of the pages, not because of like the propulsiveness. It's very measured and felt emotional, but not like dramatic, So really liked it. 4.5 stars. Girl with the hazel eyes. And, here we go. If you are curious and want to check out books that we're recommending for the Black Author Tuber Readathon, I've got a handy dandy spreadsheet. Everyone is welcome to add to it. It's got a list of author tubers who have been read over the years. So I keep them going, and then you can definitely add on new people and new channels at the bottom, at the top, wherever you want. And I just want people to see the channel to subscribe to support the Black author, and like a link to buy if you want to talk about a specific book, and then a link to your review of the book so that I know that you read it and participated and are doing the author a solid by leaving a review. That's how to participate, and that is the link. And then if you also wanted to help me by using an affiliate link to buy, I've got a playlist or like a list of the Black authors' books who are on Bookshop, which again, not Amazon, supporting bookshop.org because it helps out independent bookstores, and also helps buy the author's books, which is always good. So that was my first book. And we're 15 minutes in, but I think we needed that beginning session. So we'll go faster now. The second book and third and fourth are going to be for a different readathon. They're going to be for Climathon. So I've got a link for that. I'm the third triumvirate of the Climathon co-hosts. The newest one, and I love it. So there's a Storygraph readathon, which Tasman has outlined this year, and some subtly tweaked prompts that are going to help you get to know more about climate catastrophe, help you process your emotions, and hopefully we'll do that with my TRC series of sessions, learn more about our natural world and what we're doing to it and how we can do better. So that's the Climathon. And what books did I read for it? Well, let's see. Okay, so this one first It is a library book. It is a cute little book. It's hardcover, kind of like a textbook looking thing. It's The Intersectional Environmentalist by Leah Thomas. How to Dismantle Systems of Oppression to Protect People and Planet. It's got a nice rainbow on the cover. So, if you haven't heard of the term intersectionalism before, hello, my name is Margaret. Welcome to the channel. This might be a good book for you, actually. So I'm definitely an environmentalist, and by that I mean someone who cares about the environment over the profit motive and the economy, because the economy depends on an environment, and you can't just ignore that basic physics. The intersectionalism piece is about how we track the way we treat people differently based on different aspects of their identity, right? So part of me is an environmentalist. People may treat me one way because of that. Part of me is white. People may treat me one way because of that, white privilege. Part of me is a woman. So people may treat me some way because of that, differently than they would a man, et cetera, et cetera. Intersectional can go across race, class, gender, religion, disability, neurodivergence, sexual orientation, gender identity. I think I already said that. But yeah, lots of different facets of people's identity are able to become sort of like a prism. So Leah Thomas, what she does in this book, and I'll just consult my notes here. Let's see. There's a lot of definitions, so the look of it being sort of like a mini textbook is pretty appropriate. There's some basic history of the environmental movement, as well as some untaught history of the Black environmental movement, which I found the most interesting part of the book. It does seem aimed at like a college 101 level because of all those definitions. And it took me about 2 weeks to read because it's textbook sort of tone, and it wasn't very narratively engaging. So it was less of a fun read for me, but I did like those periods of the book that we're talking about, Black environmentalist history. And I've definitely read a lot more about Indigenous environmentalism separate from this. And so this was being inclusive of some of that, but also like really talking about this specific like lens when it came into use and who propagated it and who has been active in trying to push it. And I found that really fascinating. There was, I think the first two examples were in Houston and oh no, maybe it was Memphis. I think it was Memphis because what I remember, takeaway, and this is like 2-week read that I finished at least a week ago, is that you take something that's really famous, like the fact that Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, I believe. He was talking to the garbage workers who were striking because they had dangerous conditions and not enough pay, etc. And like that is an intersectional struggle. So he was talking to people to like get more rights, more the word I'm looking for is disappearing on me. Things enshrined in their contracts that were more fair and equitable, right? And it was because like a lot of the Black neighborhoods were near toxic waste dumps, and it's kind of talking to the point of things being cited that displace and inconvenience and make sick Black people. At sorry, yes, Black people, because we're preserving the white neighborhoods and protecting them from those safety hazards. And so that is what it means to be intersectional. It's to admit that we're treating people differently, they're having different outcomes, and that's not fair. And so we need to remedy that. We need to have a better solution that isn't trampling on some people's rights for the better of others. It didn't come out right, but you know what I mean. So again, not a narrative book, more of a textbook, not an advanced one, more of a beginner one. So not exactly for me, but still pretty useful for people looking to understand how that actually works and like get their head around the beginning of that. So that was Leah Thomas. And I get to take all these tabs off and return it to the library. Let's see. Hi, Jocelyn. Happy Wednesday. Sounds like a great read. And you don't hear much about Black environmentalism. Yeah. And especially like the woman who was the first one to like start the legal battle. So there are, like I said, the history parts that I found fascinating in there are definitely worth the read. It's very short. But yeah, it's just a little bit of a slog because it's kind of dry. So, okay, that's the first Climathon book. The second I have is, oh, let's do this. Let's do stop screen, share, and talk about this one. Okay. So, ooh, someone else has the book on their list. That's fun. So let me pop it up here and share. This is a cli-fi thriller. So Erin Kafal, interesting spelling there, wrote this book called All the Water in the World. And as you can see, it's a square. So I listened to the audiobook version, and it's narrated by Eunice Wong, who's a wonderful narrator. And I was like walking fast and my heart was pumping listening to this. It was super tense. So definitely a great thriller. And I think Eunice had a lot to do with that. But Climathon has one of the prompts that's talking about water, so it could work for that. It also has another prompt that's talking about fiction and like hope core, and it could work for that. So loved this book. It's tied for my favorite this round. And let me just tell you a little bit about it. So I got this as an ARC from Libro.fm. It took me 5 days to read it. 5-star narrator. Way to go, Eunice. And I just have to say, I looked up the Audiophile magazine review because I work for them, and I thought they must have reviewed this. Surely, why haven't I seen it come across my social media desk to post about? And it's actually like the reviewer didn't like Eunice's Chicago Black man accent, and I was like, really? That's what you're gonna? That's really? So that's one of the main characters. It's true, but I didn't expect her to have a Chicago accent, like really strong for this one character. What I found really valuable about Eunice's narration is that the narrative is told by a 13-year-old girl named Noni. And it's very touch and go to try to have a child narrator voice in an audiobook, right? It can easily be annoying. It can easily sound like a baby or just like grating or not up to the challenge of a whole story that has a lot of pieces. But Noni is a 13-year-old, and I get the sense that she's neurodivergent. She's been through a lot of trauma in this dystopian world of New York City post-flood. And she's with the remnants of her family, and they are finding sanctuary on the rooftops of the Museum of Natural History, which is AMNH, American Museum Natural History, and it eventually became Amen. So there's lots of interesting themes in this book, and you'll definitely, cotton on to them. But I thought it was great. So she gives the inner voice, like the internal voice of Noni, sort of a breathless quality and like a lower range. And then she's got a sister who is faster because of her personality, a little higher pitched. She's got her father, she's got her mother, she's got the Black man from Chicago who is part of their little colony on the roof. She's got other people that they meet in the course of their journey when their, museum gets flooded. And I thought it was just fantastic that she could hold that tension so well, but also give us moments of rest because we're in the present and we constantly dip back, not to make it an oceanic or water metaphor, but we dip back into the past to explain the backstory of like what happened to the family, the world as it was, the world as it is. I just love the terms and the delicacy. I just thought it was awesome. So I had to disagree with my colleague reviewer on that one. So the tension is good. I loved that we had a lot of like survival techniques snuck in there. So, feeding my apocalypse fiction sort of mania. Thank you for that, Erin Kafal. let's see. New York City. I do like a book set in New York City. The loss, the danger, the scientific facts to ground us. So one of the reasons that Noni is coming across as neurodivergent is when she comes to the museum, she's mute at first, and she says she has to scan people's faces to try to understand the emotions they're feeling, and that she doesn't express emotions the same way. So I think we've got someone on the autism spectrum. And so one of the things she does is she dreams a lot about science and doing the things that she wants to do as a scientist on the ocean. And uh, like she memorizes facts like nobody's business, right? So she knows all these botanical names, animal names, insect names, and they play this game, her and the black man character, and they go back and forth about, I have an animal in mind. And it's the cutest thing because we're getting science facts. And if you're a fan of Alice Henderson's sci-fi thrillers, I think you'll definitely like this because you get science facts, but it's like worked into the plot in a really seamless way. So yeah, I really love that. Any other notes? 5 stars. Oh, I had a like recipe for this one, which is that I would call it the Mars House meets To Kill a Mockingbird. So if you've read Natasha Pulley's The Mars House, which is about the Earth is a dystopia altogether and people have gone to Mars, but then there's like a new social order on Mars based on several generations of living there. And To Kill a Mockingbird because of the young narrator and like just like understanding things about the world in a different way. And there's a little bit of I wouldn't say supernatural, but like for me, I really loved that Noni felt a connection and something in her body like sensed water. So more than like a person with an achy knee knowing that a storm's coming, she is able to express what she feels when the barometer changes, how she knows a storm is coming, how she knows if there's something bad in the water, like it's toxic or something. And I just thought that was delicious and mysterious and just added to her character. So it made her individual and just really interesting. So love this. Definitely recommend. And I put all the links to get them on Bookshop down below, or you can get them at libro.fm. I also have my referral link in the description for that. So yeah, great audiobook. If you want to make yourself walk faster, like listen to that book. And then the third Climathon book I wanted to share was, and again, I don't have this one, so I'll add this here and go back. Boom. So this was dictated by the fact that I had a library book request and it came in and I thought, oh, well, I have to read it now because it's going to be requested by someone else. And this was pretty easy. It's less than 2 hours of a listen. It's called The Serviceberry, and I'm sure many of you have heard of it. It's by Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is a modern day environmentalist hero. And she is basically having a meditative essay where she says, I'm here, I'm collecting service berries, I'm meditating on the usefulness of the berries and the economy that is wrapped up in this ecosystem. Right? So she goes beyond ecosystem services, although that's what economists like to call it. And she just sort of explains her understanding and her wonderings and her delights and in this very personable voice. And then, like, an hour in, she sort of changes and she's like, and this happened, and someone stole the farm stand. And what would be a good name to call someone who's a cheater in the system? And then she calls him Darren because that's the CEO of ExxonMobil's name. And I just thought, oh my God, okay, here's the bite. Here's the bite. So I found that delightful. This came out a while ago and I was going to get it, but like some other of my booktuber friends, I was sort of balking at the fact that it's a tiny book, it's hardcover only, and it's like $30. So I did not appreciate the fact that it was definitely going to be a highly sought after book because Robin Wall Kimmerer is amazing, but like they definitely made it exclusively an expensive item. So I question the wisdom of that for the publishing professionals, but be what it may. I got it from the library. I listened to the audio version and it was great, but very short. And I think I don't need to own it. So just do with that information what you will. I'm definitely going to review it because I want to support the author and the cause and have people read it and appreciate the points. But I don't like being bullied into paying so much money for something. So Melissa is here. That's a surprise. We haven't seen you. Hello, fully booked. And Jocelyn says hi. And Jim, someone finally answers my question of the day. Current February reading mood. Reflective. Okay, I like it. I like it. Okay, so that is my first 4 books for the readathons. And I've got 4 more. So Leslie, is it okay to call you out? I didn't see an answer from my Voxer chat. Melissa says, reflective is great, Jim. My current reading mood is chaotic. Okay. All right, cool. So Leslie gave me permission. I didn't want to like make people feel a certain way. I got this as a present, and it's Keep Me by Sarah Kate. This was lovely. It came around Christmas time. And it's got a subtle cover, but it's not subtle inside. So the 3 words that best describe this book are Scottish, billionaire, smut. I put that out there for your viewing pleasure. And I will take some spicy scenes mixed in with a good personal development storyline and or romance, etc. And fantasy. I'm reading a fantasy right now, an arc that has some spicy scenes indeed, but it's like a small part of the greater political intrigue. So for this book, I would say it's a romance. So the main point of the book is the 2 people finding each other and finding happiness. But the smut parts are pretty central to their overcoming of their traumas. So that's what this is. So thank you, Leslie. You had my number because I already had downloaded this as an audiobook arc from Libro.fm. And when I started listening to it, I was turned off by the heroine narrator. She narrates the whole thing because of her Scottish accent. And I thought, she's a bitch. Like, she doesn't know how to do anything. She's a spoiled little brat. Like, what are we doing here? Did not like her at all. But, it changed. Eventually, I think when I started reading the paperback instead of listening to the audiobook, she grew on me. So we got to know a little bit of her backstory, why she's so messed up. And once I read, the story warmed. So it became less of a greedy, self-serving, I said capability-less bitch. There's another word and I just couldn't think of it. And she just seems to have no resources. So, but then, she decides to do a thing that shows that she has some character. And then I thought, oh, okay. All right. So this is why we're rooting for her. I'll get behind that. And then her target, the Scottish billionaire, he, again, at the beginning, painted very slapdash, like very cartoonish, sort of a oaf, a brute, whatever. And then like really, really damaged, like big PTSD, panic attacks, and then you kind of go, okay, well, now they need to help each other and I hope it works out. And of course it's a romance, so it does. But there's near the end, break up, and there's all this sort of tropes and whatever. The humor is pretty good, and the house is described and the setting is really beautiful. But it's basically like a BDSM romance. And so, yeah, pretty good if that is what you're into, and definitely a nice little Scottish escape for a little while. For me. Oh, and I will say one more thing about this. Sarah Kate. There's a trend with romance author pen names of giving like 2 first names and not having like an actual last name. And I think that's stupid. I don't like it. I don't like it. Why? Why? It just feels childish. And when you're writing about something so very adult, I think it's weird. So anyway, that's just my little rant. Tell me if you think differently. Maybe I'm not taking something into account. The question probably went over my head. Oh no, I was just asking because yeah, subtle. That's what she said. But this is the end of no. I'm on 5 of 8. Gareth, hello, welcome. Spicy tartan smut. Yeah, that could work too. But although spicy and smut are redundant, and you don't get the billionaire thing in there, so like both of these characters are very privileged, and so that's like part of the thing that people want when they read these types of books, I think. So yeah, that's I think an important element to convey with my 3-word sum up. Gara says, the question of the day answer is I'm reading Robin Hobb. Excellent. And loving it. My first time with her. Way to go. I tried a Robin Hobb last year and didn't really get along in the first 50 pages or so. So I'm glad you are because they sound amazing. The people that talk about the books like really love them. So maybe I should just try a different one. Different series. All right. Book number 6 is a cookbook. So we kind of have a cookbook series going because ever since the election and I decided to be vegetarian, I'm using cookbooks with sort of a spirit of healthy eating and healthy cooking and like a delight in food preparation as inspiration and motivation for me to spend more time on it. So kind of like if you think about how fast fashion has encouraged us because clothes are cheaper, clothes are more disposable, we should buy more of them more often as a business model. The way to fight against that is to have clothes last longer and have more meaning and, not to be bothered about what other people think. So same thing for food. I want to, if I have to pay more for local, for organic, for food that I know the people who grow it, like that's important to me. So, yeah. So that is why I'm investing in all these used cookbooks that I'm hoping will inspire me and, ripping up the tabs to put some of these to the test. So this one is the latest in the series, and it's by Food 52, which is like a New York Times article group, I think, that came into being in like 2005-ish. Food bloggers space sort of dominated for a while, and this is a more recent cookbook. I don't know what they've evolved into, but I guess now they make cookbooks called Big Little Recipes. And it says good food with minimal ingredients and maximal flavor. So it's not vegetarian. As you can see, there's bacon on the cover, but it is about paying attention to seasonality and like beautiful presentation to make you savor the process of eating your meals and making your meals. So some of the ones in here, that was orange avocado salad with fish sauce and almonds. Like that sounds really interesting. Charred carrot soup with miso is also tagged. What else do I have on here? Bow ties. So that's pasta with anchovy butter, kale, and kasha. Kasha is like buckwheat, so something maybe Jim has more often than we do in America. Scorched rice with avocado and horseradish tahini. So yeah, just like interesting combinations and international influences. So just things to get you thinking about other places, learning about other cultures, and inspired to savor your own meals. It just puts me in a good mood to read a cookbook and think about something that I might make. So that is a plus in my column. Do I have any other notes for Big Little Recipes? I've been on a bit of a bender since the election decision to go vegetarian. And I should say pescatarian because I still will do fish every once in a while. But it's for inspiration. Oh, and here's the other thing I kind of thought. It's like rehearsing virtue. What do you think of that? It's like mentally doing reps at the gym. Like if you think about doing reps, is your body like getting a signal? So does it benefit a tiny bit? So in the same way, when we're reading through and thinking about, oh, I could do this with the rice, or I could do this combination for a salad, that would be really good for winter citrus, and getting excited about it. Is that sort of like mentally preparing yourself to get those nutrients? I don't know. It's just a crazy theory, but who knows? Two more. Let's see. Yes. Hi, Kappa. Yes, I did change the time. If you want to know why, I had a little rage geyser session at the beginning, the first 10 minutes, maybe the first 10 minutes, and you'll get an inkling as to why. Chaos today. Did I DNF the Robin Hobb? Yes. I think I actually even unhauled the book. It was something Apprentice, but there may be two of those. Yeah. Jim says, I'm reading The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel because Barnaby Rudge and The Magic Mountain are kind of long and slow. Yeah, you need to take breaks. That's the key. I think that's definitely a good reading strategy. Gareth says, Jim, I've read 2 of her books and like them both a lot. Whose books? Did I get something out of order? Are you talking about Emily St. John Mandel? I've read one of hers, I think. Just the Station 11, which is really good. Anita says, the only cookbooks I've bought lately are from YouTubers. Ooh, do tell. Do I know any? I know Kat. What's her handle? It starts with an emoji, which is always like hard to sum it up in the chat. Ginger Bibliophile? Gareth will know. She's always in Gareth's chat. Cat Paw says, I'm reading Clara Gradage's Josephine Fox series. Recommend. Yeah, I just got Cat Paw's recommendation, and she said I would probably like the snark. So I definitely have the one on my list. You said you were going on to 2 and 3, but I think I only saw 2 when I looked at the series. I thought it was like early in the series, and she hadn't published too many, but maybe I missed something. Yeah, Jim says Kasha is very common here. Yes. I think of like Bulgaria and this sort of like Eastern Balkans is the cradle of the buckwheat cuisine. So Gareth says, my wife mentioned avocado last night, possibly for the first time ever in the 30. What? Why? Why is that a weird thing? You guys, you've been to California. I know it was a long time ago. Has your wife never been to like an avocado growing region? Have you guys never appreciated the beauty that is guacamole? Guacamole. So good. Cat Pa says, with 2 first names as the author, I just assumed it was a pen name of 2 women. Oh, you might be right. That would be an explanation. Yeah, I guess I would take that. I've seen it a few times, though, and that's why I feel like it's a trend. And I don't know if it's because it's dual authors, but it could be. Yeah. Oh, hi, Richard. Welcome. Jim says, I should have read The Glass Hotel before A Sea of Tranquility. Are they related? Or just because of publication order? Huh. Yes, there's definitely BDSM in the Keep Me book. So, and I forgot the like content warning, but that one does have BDSM, and it also has like parental cruelty. If that is one of your like don't want to read about it, just be advised, like that's part of the story. So is the Sea of Tranquility disappointing? Oh no. Oh. Melissa is supplying the name that I forgot, Assassin's Apprentice. Thank you, by Robin Hobb. I'll be reading the final book in the trilogy soon. They're chunky. Yeah. And I think like you loved it and recommended it, right? So wow. Okay. Red Letter Day, February 12th. I'm agreeing with Richard. I didn't get on with the first book of hers I picked up either. But I feel like I should give a different one a try because so many people I know love her. So, maybe more than once. Ginger bibliophile. Okay, I think I got that right after a couple of seconds. Yeah. Oh, okay. It's gonna stop instead of a sneeze. That's fine. Yeah, so Ginger Bibliophile is Catherine Jones, and she has a cookbook. But let's see if Anita puts up a different. I'm just gonna keep going through the chat until I get to Anita's comment. Jim says, I follow recipes on YouTube like Laura in the Kitchen's channel. Is the channel name Laura in the Kitchen? I haven't heard of that one. That's fun. Hi, Emma. Hello, hello. Uh-huh. I don't know what this reference is, but you do it every time. Anita says, so Tasting History by Max Miller. I am subscribed to that channel. Baking Yesteryear by B. Dylan Hollis, who I haven't heard of. Cooking the Victorian Way. Oh, that sounds good. And Anne Reardon's Dessert Cookbook. Ooh. So what did you call it? YouTubers? Okay. So do you mean like they started out on YouTube or like Instagram or something? That's really cool. I figured that was like a small niche, but I like it. I just followed Justine Doir. In my head, I call her Doiron because it's Doiron from TikTok to YouTube, and I really like her style. So mostly I see her in shorts, not wearing shorts, in YouTube shorts, because that's the same format as TikTok. But she's really good at explaining or like making something like a personal memory or just like introducing you to a new technique. I like that. Jim says, I like to Sea of Tranquility, but remember very little of it. And there are some of the same characters in the Glass Hotel. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Gara says to Melissa, yeah, that's the one I'm reading. Okay, so Gareth is reading Assassin's Apprentice. All right. Melissa says, I really like Assassin's Apprentice, but I wouldn't put it top of my fantasy list. Weakest point is pacing, in my opinion. Yeah, it didn't grab me at the beginning. And if I wasn't trying to do so many other books, maybe that wouldn't have been a killer, but yeah. Jim says, tasting history is entertaining, but haven't followed any other recipes yet. Yeah. Well, something can be educational without being like of practical use. I have several lists that are about like plants, foraging, and I'm not going to make gelatin out of some of these things, unless we have an apocalypse. So, Gareth says better pacing than Blade itself, I reckon. Is that Joe Abercrombie? I think it must be because Richard said same name. Anita says they all have YouTube channels, although B. Dylan Hollis is also on TikTok. You need to watch his shorts. They're so fun. Oh, okay. Let me. Whoops. I'm on caps lock. Way to go. Okay. I'll open that up so that I don't forget on another tab. Cool. Great recommendation. Thank you. Richard says I do need to read more of that Joe Abercrombie. Yeah, must be the Blade itself. I did remember. Yay. And we have Raven Misty. Hello, welcome. Anyone's current February reading mood? Last chance. And then I'm going to talk about my last two books. So, last but one is a library book, and I can't remember how this got on my list. Let me see if I wrote a note on it. I don't think I did. Oh, audiophile. That's why. Okay. So the here we go. The magazine that I work for that does audiobook reviews, about which I disagreed on the All the Water in the World. They had this in one of their roundups of new books, new audiobooks. And I thought, ooh, that sounds interesting. And it's set in Northern Ireland, partly. So I thought, I should read this. So this is what I got from the library. It's called The Slow Road North: How I Found Peace in an Improbable Country. It's got sort of a graphic painting cover by Rosie Schaap. And here's what I think about this one. I wouldn't have normally prioritized this, but I read it in 2 days very quickly. I skimmed it even in parts because someone wanted it back at the library, so I couldn't renew it like I do 20 other books from the library. Yeah, all those books, library books. Just to be full disclosure. So I was forced to prioritize it a bit more than I would have than like a random recommendation, because I did pick it up and then I didn't want to have to go through the process of picking it up again. So it was a quick read. I skimmed it. It reminded me a lot of My Heart's in the Lowlands, which is a book I read maybe like 8-9 years ago, maybe even more. And it's an author who writes, I think, Scottish romance, but it's a nonfiction memoir about where she visits in the lowlands of Scotland. So she adapted the Robert Burns poetry / song title into the Highlands to the Lowlands to suit her purpose. And it's very cozy. It's like, I went here first and met this delightful person, and we went out for tea, and the scones were lovely, and just sort of like armchair travel stuff. So it reminded me a bit of that, but the parts that I skimmed were a lot about grief. So I was not in the mood to read about grief, and that's what a lot of the book is about. So I was reading for some of her life in New York City, and I did read some of her backstory, but just quickly. She has a husband who dies early of cancer. She has a mother who I think is bipolar and then dies early of a disease. And so these things really propel her into depression, not dealing with her grief. And then she's a writer and does all these sort of cool assignments. And one randomly takes her to Belfast, or it's like a weekend that someone encourages her to visit. And she makes it into a story. And then she goes back, and then she goes back. So sounds kind of familiar. And what I really liked about it, besides the sort of cozy armchair travel piece, is that I loved her talking about her love for her Brooklyn apartment and the relationship she built up there and her relationship with things, and like reflecting on that, because I do talk about clutter and that sort of sociological stuff. I loved her talking about finding Glenarm, which is the place where she lives now, Northern Ireland, like a tiny village. I loved reading about the courage to try a big change in her life, because she sort of felt like the grief was not being processed and she needed to shake it loose with a big change. And if she didn't move out of New York City and this rent control apartment now, she never would, and she'd always be stuck. So that really resonated with like someone who is able to do that. And also her ability to make friends. So she talks about friends, and she's, 40s, 50s, making new friends, learning new landscapes in the village, and adapting. And I think that's just inspirational. So I really enjoyed my very quick read of The Slow Road North. And now, of course, I want to visit this tiny little village. She talks about, and I'm not sure how she's able to do this when she constantly is talking about being broke, but visiting and reserving a stay in a national heritage house. So basically, like, it's a architectural heritage gem. It's a place that the nation devotes resources to keep up. But in order to keep it up, they need to make money on it. So they rent it out to people like a B&B, but it's just self-catering, right? So I'm not sure how that works. But it seems to me it would be expensive. But I'm gonna look into that now, because that sounds really cool. So if any of you have experience doing that in the UK, like, tell me. Oh, and she also does all of this in 2019. So she's getting to know people and then moving there at the height of Brexit's changes, and then talks about COVID and being on lockdown with her new friend. And yeah, so that all felt really real and close. And yeah, Jewish New Yorker moves to tiny town in Northern Ireland. It was funny when she details people asking her, what are you kind of thing. And she says there's a really fun anecdote where she's like, she made this, acquaintance at a bar, and he said, "Oh, so is that you I saw leaving the Catholic mass last Sunday?" And she says, "No." And like, they don't want to come out and ask, right? So the next time he sees her, "Oh, did I see you leaving the Presbyterian church last?" And she's like, "No, no, no, I'm Jewish." He's like, what do I do with that? Because there's only two communities in their world. And so their world was kind of rocked by her affiliation, which I thought was entertaining the way she said it. So yeah, so that was delightful. And now I can bring it back and not feel guilty about someone else waiting for me to return it. Okay. And okay. So Anita answered the question too. My February reading mood is cozy escape. I like that. So far mine is all over the place. So I think I'm with, is it Melissa Chaos? Catpot is agreeing with Anita, like cozy escape. Yeah. And Catpot related recently a milestone in the word count of the latest work. So congratulations on that. I hope it's still like feeling good. And yeah, next steps. Oh, Gwenna's here, leaving likes and love. Hey, Gwenna. Nice to see you, friend. Long time no see. Busy with baby. It'll mess with your schedule, I hear. Okay, so last one, and this is tied for my favorite with all the water in the world. And it's this one. And yes. Look at all the tabs. Look at all the tabs. Okay, the fun part is that, okay, this is obviously a library book. But like I did with the cookbook salad days, I checked to see if Powell's had this in its used inventory, and it does for $12. So this lovely book is a paperback, and I'm sure it's in great condition. And I'm going to go down to Powell's today because my schedule has been rearranged for me by the doctor's clinic, and grab my used copy and transfer all my tabs before I bring this back to the library. Oh, sometimes life just works, right? That's the opposite of the rage geyser. That's the joy geyser. So this book, for those who can't see, is called Worn, A People's History of Clothing by Sophie Thanhauser, and it is a 5-star read for me. It's one of those kind of niche books that's sort of social science, sort of history, and it's talking about our history of the world with a certain lens. So this one is obviously through textile history. And we go in sections by materials. So we're looking at archaeology in terms of what materials were the earliest used and how humans use them and where. And then we talk about how we improved on them and how they affected society. And it's so fascinating. So this was a 2-week read. So it did take me a while to absorb all that. It was very good. And we start with linen. Then we go to cotton. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of social history of cotton. One, the New World, colonialism, slavery, oppression, and all that. But also think of the natural resource appropriation from one part of the world to another. And think of the more modern day slavery of folks who are in export processing zones, for example, have starvation wages, can't leave the building, die in a fire, just like Americans did in the 19th century, but they do it today because they have no protections. And the industry is extractive because it wants more cheap crap to sell people. So just beware. And the natural resource piece is basically like cotton is so water thirsty for water that if you have a region that doesn't have a lot of water naturally, you're taking food production out of the mouths of the people who live there to subsidize cotton production or consumption. That's what I'm looking for. Consumption in another part of the world. So it's really like I drank your milkshake from the place where we buy the cotton garment all the way around the world to the place where they are growing it and processing it. Because processing cotton takes a lot of water too. So like really interesting facets to examine about textile history and social history. Linen, cotton, silk. A lot of stuff I didn't know about silk. Silkworms, mulberry trees, China, development, like so cool. Trade routes, nylon. So here, I didn't know this. Nylon is the same thing as viscose. Did you know that? I did not know that. Also, they're made from trees, not petroleum. I think I knew that because I knew that bamboo made rayon, and previously people would use other uh, kinds of trees, like old growth Appalachian trees, right? So rayon and viscose factories popped up in the early 20th century when the inventions started the trend, right? And that spelled the death knell for all of the, trees in the Appalachians where they were sacrificed for industrial activity and jobs for the short term, which is just really sad. But yeah, made from trees. Really, really takes high toxic content of chemicals to make the tree fiber soft enough to turn into thread, but that's how it's done. And yeah, not a clean process, let's say. But still made from trees, which I did not know. And I don't know why we have two names for it. That's just confusing. And then we moved on to nylon, which is made from petroleum. So nylons came after rayon viscose, and they were like 20 years later, the new trend, made from oil, just like plastics. Stockings were all the rage, the craze. The plastic clothes were a thing for a while, and like rubber clothes is pretty crazy. And then of course there were shortages because they needed plastics for the war effort, blah blah blah. Like really just like interesting. Then you get into microplastics, the last category, which I was surprised because I thought wool would be earlier. But here's the thing: linen, cotton, silk, rayon, nylon, all. Oh, that's not true. Okay, scratch that. When you get to wool, the reason she leaves it till the end is that it's enjoying a resurgence of popularity and interest. And so I think that's why she concludes, Sophie Thanhauser. She concludes with wool because it's good for small scale. I mean, linen maybe, but it's maybe a harder art to learn. I don't know. So small scale, you can raise sheep, you can shear the sheep, you can spin the wool, you can card the wool, you can make the thread, and use a loom to create your own cloth. And this is one of my experiments. As you can see, this is my second attempt, so I'm not perfect by any means, but pretty even. There's a couple rows that are tighter, and I'm just fascinated by it. So finally using my little pin loom to like actually get some dexterity experience, because like this is so cool. And here's the cool thing, right? So I finished this book on Saturday last, and I was so inspired and excited about like the new economy based on not just self-sufficiency, but small scale agriculture and knowledge and sort of taking back those traditions. She goes into a lengthy part about Navajo weaving and how people whose ancestral knowledge was interrupted, like they were taken to boarding schools, they were not allowed to wear the clothing that was their traditional clothing, etc. We're now coming back to learning it from different folks in a non-traditional way, but then getting the knowledge back, which is so encouraging. So yeah, I'm just so encouraged by that. I went out to a bagel place and then a wallpaper place, which were both really cool. And then she pointed out a thrift store that had like vintage rugs and also vintage clothes. And so I went and I was like trying to feel what's the denim weave and what's the selvage edge, and just like learning about all this in a tactile way. And that was just really cool. So I went to another thrift store after that and was just kind of like looking, just like clocking, like understanding things better in a tiny, tiny way, right? Microbial micronometers of progress at a time, but that may not be the right word either. I think you know what I mean, but, like, we're making progress, and that makes me feel better about the world. Mm, okay, Cat Paw says, "Sounds interesting. We'll send a link on the what fiber makes what product name." Oh, okay, so we've got your yeah, this was very general, my outline, but you've got more. This is great. Um, Kappa also has blankets you've crocheted for sale. You said if anyone is not afraid of, and I can't remember the postal service, esta something, but if anyone is interested, Catpaw has some of those to sell. Oh, hi Ben. My YouTube did not ping at me. No worries. You do need to listen to the first 10 minutes to discover my experimental usage of a rage geyser. It was loud. Leslie says pretty stitch work. Thank you. Okay. Um Speaking of stitches, this is on my next up list. But this this beautiful squishy thing is like the height. I wish I could do something that is this sumptuous, but and the color scheme I love. But yeah, this is Leslie's handiwork. It's so nice. Um and so your compliment. I'm like way over here. It's okay. It's okay. We're all in our own place, right? Yeah. Oh, you make me laugh. So Cat Paw says linen is hard to spin. Cotton and linen uses different equipment from each other, I imagine. I love that wool is having a resurgence, because too often fleeces are discarded and just buried as compost. Yeah. Yeah. Some of the stuff that was discussed was really sad. So on the labor front, they were talking about shepherds that were given 3-year visas from Peru, and they would come up in like Wyoming or Montana, and they were like treated like indentured servants in the 18th century, just like human rights abuses, right? Um, and so that is worrying, and that's still happening, I imagine. But then they were also talking about different parts in the world where if wool in different times in history where wool did not fetch a high price throughout the 20th century in the US was one of the examples. And they'd burn it. One of the gals I watched on TikTok said something about combining it with something else. Heather? Not Heather. Some other plant that grows on the moors a lot, and combining it with wool as a fertilizer. I mean, if you've got a lot of it and it's not fetching a high price, like put it back into the soil if it's a good fertilizer. I thought that was actually pretty creative. Yeah. Ben says, "Ooh." I don't know if that's for the book cover or the Rage Geyser cover. Estafeta. Okay, I was close. I was gonna say esta fuerte, which is what I have in my head from 8th grade Spanish. Courier post. Beat me for a link to stuff available. So there you go. If you're in the market for a crocheted blanket by a professional level. Yeah. Leslie says, "Oh, I'm glad you like it." I love it. I don't need to put a book in it. So I just use it as like a tactile stress ball. And it matches. I love the colors, so it's definitely a cheer me up. Leslie says, "Yeah, we're all our own beautiful works of art." Well said. Well said. Flax. Oh, are you talking about different names? Flax is the plant name, and that is what we make linen from. I I I knew that before the book, actually. There's one. So I did another big TikTok session of going through my saved videos and downloading those that I could and saving the others that I couldn't in different categories. And there's a category for craft. And there's one that I remember a long time ago that was how to ret flax and make linen. And it was so cool. It was like, it blew my mind because this is 5 years ago when I was learning about nettles and where they grow and how nutritious they are. And I was like, oh, I'm totally going to forage those. So I haven't gone to forage flax because it's a bit more involved of a process and I don't have a water meadow to lay my, spines in partially water to rot over a season so that they're soft enough to, spin. But yeah. Oh, I love getting to know the old-timey knowledge. It's like I feel empowered because of it. Ben says, I love that, Leslie. Yeah, we're on beautiful works of art. I thought it was a hot water cover. I mean, it could be if I had a particularly small hot water bottle. Not particularly small, but like, is this about the right size? It's about as big as my head. It might be about the right size. Maybe I found a new use. I don't have a hot water bottle. We don't tend to use them in the US, but I might be able to find one. Raven says, oh, I mean the plant that was combined with cotton. Combined with cotton. Oh no, I was thinking of one that was combined with wool to make fertilizer. It wasn't flax. It wasn't for garments. It was for fertilizing the soil. It wasn't seaweed, although that's been used. It's something that they use sheep to graze down because it's too high. It's not rhododendrons, but it's something that's like shrubby. Anyway. Yeah. It looks so soft and squishy. Yeah. It is. It's delightful. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. So, okay, let me make sure I've said all the points that I needed to say today. Today is Wednesday. We did our wrap up of 8 books. I got through all my lovely notes. I had my 2 favorites, which are All the Water in the World and Worn, A People's History. I will definitely be going down to get my own copy and transfer all my tabs this afternoon after the gym. Maybe after a blood draw. We'll see. We'll see what I can get in this afternoon since everything's been rearranged. But I definitely encourage you all to check out the, let's see if I can get up here, the Black AuthorTube Readathon spreadsheet. If any of the genres and titles and authors feel appealing, check them out and participate. You'll just read a book, leave a review, and I'm doing a drawing in the beginning of March once it's completed of everyone who participates, and I'm going to send everyone the guests' books. So Callie, Tiffany, Deidre, and Chelsea. So the 4 guests I'm going to have on the Sundays, I'll send someone their books if you participate. So that is your incentive. And also Climathon Storygraph challenges are here way up in the chat if you want to check it out. I'm co-hosting. I'm reading lots of books for it, and I'm just fascinated by all the stuff I'm learning. So I would love for you to join me on that journey. Leslie says, I totally forgot how to do the basket weave pattern. Is that what this is? That looks like a basket weave to me. Yeah. This looks like an inverted something. I don't know. You got fancy names, lady. I don't know. I've got a book. And like I'm still using the video tutorial to try to figure out, especially near the edges, what to do, that I'm not going around the wrong pins. But I'm getting the hang of it. I tried a third one and I got to 75% through a third one with this new yarn and realized it's, what's it called? 2-ply. And so when I tried the weaving part, which is the last quarter of the work, it rubbed up against the other threads. And so it like, I don't have vocabulary for this. Anyway, it got stuck and really thick at one point, like a snake having swallowed a man with a hat. So it did not work, and I had to just take it off and start over. So live and learn. Kara says, I will check out the BAT link. Excellent. Good luck with your rearranged schedule. Thank you. Jocelyn says, that basket weave is gorgeous. Yay. There we go. The pants look intimidating. Well, we each have our own, what's that called? River Jordan to cross, I guess. And then Jocelyn says, I used to try to knit and had a knitting machine, but it stopped working. Well, that's fancy. That's cool. You can just try needles. That might be less complicated. But yeah, YouTube tutorials, man, that's where you'll find me for the next weeks, months. And then we'll venture on to something bigger. But that is our wrap up today. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for watching. Remember, diversify that reading shelf. Tell me if you're going to join any of those readathons with me. And I hope you have happy reading, everybody. Happy midweek. And I will see you next on Sunday. Bye, everybody. Take care.